I would like to start by applauding the unity of the women in our parliament, coming together to move the motion on aspirations of Singapore women. This is important because only in unity do we find strength. I'm heartened that our men too stood up to lend their voice in support of this motion. It is a positive and forward-looking motion. A positive and forward-looking motion. The speeches affirm the importance of the role of women in our multiracial society and economy, and it's a far, far different cry from what we'd have heard maybe 50 years ago. They gave many practical suggestions to the government on how to support all women in Singapore comprehensively, in leadership, in social impact, employment and entrepreneurship, family and caregiving, and financial well-being. However, I find the approach of Mr. Faisal worrisome. He has used this motion, which is focused on the aspirations of all women in Singapore, to raise again the issue of the tudung, to focus on differences instead of rallying people to be united. He dwells on issues that can injure or hurt the feelings of the community rather than to inspire them. In fact, Mr. Manap has used many occasions to raise potentially discordant issues in this House. I sat listening to him many times, champion divisive issues many times, like the need for halal kitchens in our naval ships, and his perceived discriminations of the Malays in the army. It is his or his party's position that these issues are the top concerns of the community. There are real social, economic problems we have to deal with in our community: education, housing, jobs. Mr. Faisal Manap spent some time on these issues, but he does not fail to leave behind semblance, trails of these divisive issues relating to the community, everything from halal kitchens on ships to the issue of Palestine. It leaves behind to linger in the minds of our community, not only to make them feel different, even to make them feel unjustifiably treated unequally. Now, the government has responded to Mr. Manap's queries on the tudung issue and other issues, and I will not elaborate today, except to emphasize that we are in a multiracial society, and we all have a role to play to enlarge our common space. This is not to say that religious aspirations are not important. In fact, they must never be put aside. Religion is indeed important to many of us. I assure you that I too want to see progress on the tudung issue and religious matters that are dear to Muslims. I am also a father of a daughter. I am also a husband of my wife. That is why government leaders and community leaders of all races and religions have been actively discussing such sensitive and deeply emotive matters in a number of closed-door platforms. It's not easily resolved considering all the moving parts in this matter, but I'm glad that it continues to be under review. The process entails understanding workplace requirements and operational needs in the wider scheme of things. I caution the member from making this a state versus religion issue. All these years, our approach has been to win people, slowly but surely, through mutual exchange and meaningful interaction, to help Singaporeans understand each other, to understand every community's aspirations. We do this in the spirit of mutual respect, recognizing that other communities too come with their own perspective on how they want to live in these common spaces. And this will take time to accept. There is a right time, a right place, and a right way to discuss this. This approach has achieved for the community progress in recent years, which include the extension of EduSave to madrasa students in 2013, waiving national examination fees for secular subjects taken by madrasa students in 2015, and better supporting madrasa teachers who teach secular subjects from this year. Likewise, the community can trust the government and Muslim leaders to work together on the matter of the tudung. The community and its religious leaders know that this is a religious matter best resolved and progressed naturally with the acceptance of our larger society. Our religious leaders do not choose to be strident in this matter. I wonder why the member choose to be so. Madam Speaker, the fundamental priority of this government is to build harmony and trust among the races and religions, and to protect this progress we've made so far. The issues of Malays and the SAF, issues about tudung, even halal kitchen that the member has talked about, these are not issues about religion alone. They are, even if they're put up that way, they are difficult issues to resolve. But clearly the way to make progress is gradually and quietly, working under the radar to strengthen mutual trust and understanding among Singaporeans so that we can move forward step by step. Indeed, that is how we've got here, championing them in a high-profile way, like the member always does once in a while, using them to score political points. This will not strengthen trust. It will only raise the temperature and actually make the problems harder to solve. Madam Speaker, we are fortunate because by far we have many among us who are clearly level-headed. Many of us, I understand, I believe, do not support a strident way to solve our problem. Indeed, even in the internet, I have read people who criticize Mr. Faisal for the way he has taken the matter forward. However, there are people who would support Mr. Faisal. I saw a posting where he was posing with Mr. Zulfikar Sharif, who was arrested for his views and support for the ISIS terrorists. This was in 2014, I think, for the Wear White campaign. Now, it makes us wonder whether it is Mr. Faisal who is supporting Mr. Zulfikar, or Mr. Zulfikar supporting Mr. Faisal, or are they together in this because of a common cause, or indeed, are there other common causes that they are in together? But let me bring back the discussion to the core of the motion. Many MPs have spoken on this motion and focused on how well we have done our women achieve their aspirations in education, supporting women at work, and taking care of their families. These are things the government will consider carefully, seriously. And these are matters all of us must work very hard on. Indeed, many of these policies have helped Malay families tangibly. We're putting our efforts in education, raising the levels of achievement, helping to retrain, reskill older Malays, and getting Malay families living in rental flats to own them. There is a lot of work to be done, but we have made steady progress. Let me end by highlighting the great strides that Singapore Malay Muslim women have made in a society that has allowed people of all races, all religions, to make progress. One such example is Madam Zuraida binti Abdullah, who is the Senior Assistant Commissioner of Police, highest ranking senior officer in the police, chairperson of the Malay Heritage Foundation, and member of the National Library Board. She's the commander for the training command. Another is Ms. Rahayu binti Buang, CEO of Mendaki. Prior to this, she served as a director in the Family Education and Support Division and Office for Women's Development. Also took care of probation, family issues before she joined Mendaki. Yet another is our colleague, Associate Professor Fatima Latif, a senior consultant as SGH at Emergency Medicine. And let me not forget to mention yourself, Speaker, who has done so well. We are very proud of you. The community is very proud of you. You led NTUC as the Deputy Secretary General. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, I wish to once again thank Ms. Tin Pei Ling and the women present here, and all the women present here, moving this motion today, which I hope will help women, regardless of their race, their religious beliefs or practices, make a mark in our society.
Mr. Faisal, Madam.
Madam, I'd like to clarify some of the points made by Minister, who's trying to paint a negative image on myself. Madam, firstly, I disagree on Minister's claim that I'm causing discord and divisiveness. My point is that I choose to use Parliament as a platform, an official platform, as an elected member to voice out the community concerns. I did not choose or do any kind of comment, negative comment on social media, even though I have my own Facebook page, but I did not choose to do that because I know such matter is better to be discussed officially. So I believe that as a member of Parliament, elected through the GRC system, I do have the right to voice the concerns. And some of the concerns that I've voiced out, for example, the halal kitchen issue was not initiated by me, but it was mentioned by Minister for Defense, Dr. Ng Eng Hen. I'm just reiterating what he has mentioned and ask him for clarification on whether there will be effort done to address that issue. As for the point that Minister made on Zulfikar, I was there to support the Wear White movement. I just want to reiterate one more time, I was there to support the Wear White movement. I'm not so sure what's behind Minister's mind when he tried to link me to Zulfikar, and I'm a bit distraught by his effort to pin me negatively when what I was trying to do is to voice out the concern of the community in an official platform and avoid myself from entangled in this kind of discussion on a social media platform. So I believe that I've explained enough, and I would appreciate if Minister would be more positive in his remark towards me. Thank you, Madam.
Minister Masagos.
The Speaker, Mr. Faisal is not repentant nor apologetic. He insists his strident approach is the correct way to do what he wants to do, he needs to do. Perhaps it is the spirit of the First World Parliament. But I put to Mr. Faisal that this strident approach is putting Singapore's multiracial harmony at risk. What we say about our religious rights, what we say is our right to do things in this multiracial context, may appease a part of our community. Maybe it's even because we have to carry it out as a religious responsibility to voice it out. But remember, others are listening too. They are watching us. You may have spoken, the member may have spoken in Malay, but everyone else understands the translated version. Members in this House, and later on, maybe he's posting to say that I spoke about this. Now, yesterday, the Imam who made offensive remarks about the Christian and Jews was found guilty by the court, fined for the offensive remark. Two others who traded barbs over the new media were given stern warning. But I want to quote what the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Singapore told today's newspaper. He said, religious teachers must be aware that they are not just addressing the believers, but also the world as well. And what they say can be heard by others, so they must be more cautious not to be seen as slighting to other religions. Now, this may not be about slighting religions, but it also stirs emotions within our community and other communities who also have things and rights and rituals that they may want to do, but may not be able to do because we value our common space. So I believe this applies to all of us, all political leaders, when we raise issues on religion, or race, or language. In Singapore, we have allowed large doses of freedom in our religious practices, especially those that do not impinge on others. But when we have to do something that are in the common spaces, when we are working together, what we do as what we call our religious rights have sometimes pushbacks, uncomfortable feelings about what we do by other communities. And we must recognize this. And indeed, if each community pushes its own claims aggressively, there will be pushback. There will be animosity. Can we imagine that here we are campaigning for our Muslim ladies to put on their tudung? What are employers thinking? Do we also compromise the equal opportunity that these employers would have employed them on the basis of their competence, on the basis of their ability, and now they have to also consider whether they should be allowed other religious rights that they claim to be theirs? Now, thankfully, all of us, most of us, are patient and rational voices, and unlike Mr. Faisal, I do not believe things like this should be discussed openly, publicly, and then left hanging without answers. I believe that we should call for constructive engagement, like he said, but we must not do it at a pace that upsets social harmony. We must not do it among people who have other agendas who we may not be able to control, and then may have consequences we never thought about. Madam Speaker, yesterday, like I mentioned, the Imam was found guilty by the court. 2 other fellows were given stern warning. But today, there is calm in Singapore. I think we put diary entries today will say, nothing of import happened today. But not so in 1950, when the court awarded custody of Maria Hertog against the wishes of the Muslims who consequently rioted. Now, this calm that we have today is not, I believe, the level-headedness of Singaporeans. Yes, it is in a way, but it's because we have tended to our racial and religious harmony fastidiously. And therefore, I will not take Mr. Faisal's tactic lightly and let him needle the community's sensitivity subtly and frequently. It leaves a lingering feeling of unsolved, unsolvable, and impatience that one day, I believe, will explode. Is that what Mr. Faisal wants?
Mr. Faisal, Madam.
Madam, I'd like to clarify the point made by Minister. Firstly, I'm not hiding behind my usage of my national language. Is the Malay language is the national language, it's my mother tongue. I'm proud to use my national language in my speech. Secondly, I'd like to again ask, Minister, can he provide me or explain or share with me or share with the House any specific particular situation where I tried to cause discord or divisiveness? What I've been asking since I was elected in this House is for the government to address the issue. I've called for a committee to be formed, commission to be formed to look into the concerns of the Malay community. How does that cause divisiveness and discord? I've not imposed any of my thoughts, and I do not mention even for the sake of Muslim community, we shall compromise the national or the social cohesiveness or integration. So I'd like to ask Minister, can he explain any examples that I'm sowing discord and divisiveness.
Mr. Masagos.
The member does not need to intend to sow discord. But by the practice of subtly and frequently bringing issues that are sensitive to the community, knowing that it is not easy to resolve, and cleverly turning it into a state versus religion issue, these are all very dangerous moves. I actually wonder whether the WP and its leadership are committed to the racial and religious harmony which underpins the security of this country. Do we want to go back to the politics of race and religion of the 1960s, the politics we wanted to avoid when we left Malaysia? If we don't want that, why do we let a member to constantly raise these issues, to stir the community, to tell them you are different, to subtly suggest to them we are not able to address your issues now because the government won't do it?
Mr. Faisal, Madam.
The Minister has not answered my question of example of where I've caused discord and divisiveness. On the issue of what earlier Ministers mentioned about the issue faced by the community is not easy to resolve. Hence, I've been asking persistently and consistently for the government to address the issue. That's the point that I've been making since I was elected. And even I only started to make this point after after the Suara Mesyuarat report was made public, and I based on that concern voiced in that report as a basis for my point that I bring up in the Parliament.
I have not heard the member also has not heard me. The government does not address this in public forums, in debates, in places like this where sensitive matters can be discussed out of context, emotionally, and sometimes because they're not easy to resolve, because they cannot be quickly resolved, leaves a lingering, unhappy feeling in a community. It may not be our community, it may be any community. And therefore, the approach of the government is to address this within closed doors, within the community, with the community leaders and people who are responsible to carry the message for us and with us. Now, like I mentioned to Mr. Faisal, what is worrying me is not so much about whether he intends to sow discord. The Imam did not intend to say anything to hurt the Christians or the Jews. But the Christians and the Jews, now that it is out in the open, do feel insulted. It is not only our intention that matters. It is our action and how people interpret it. I met some students in Mecca and Medina very recently, and they were unhappy, they were concerned that many people think people who study in Mecca and Medina will have what they call Salafi thinking, not moderate, very extreme. And they say, we don't do all these things. We say all the good things. We tell people to do only the right things as a Muslim. But I ask them, have you ever checked what people think and what people do after what you say, what you teach them? Have you ever gone to the ground to check the impact of what you teach them? As an example, I told them there was a divorce that happened after they got the wife to become very religiously observant, and the wife, because the husband is not so religiously observant, divorced the husband. And what were they doing? Only telling good things. And therefore, as responsible members of this House. I hope you just don't do this as a matter of course, because it's a responsibility to do so, even if it is your right to do so. But do this responsibly, because we have a context. We have a very precious social fabric to preserve. And I ask the Workers' Party and everybody here, respect that, preserve that, because this is something we can leave for our children.